we would all agree that that was especially good council tea. And I wonder if we could pass our thanks to the cooks. Those who prepared it, please.
Thank you.
Hang on. I'm just got to find my place in the scheme of things.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to address you. The issue I want to speak about is the problem of access and safe parking for large wheelchair accessible vehicles in the new Westgate and elsewhere in Oxford. Specifically, the problem is one of height restrictions. This may sound trivial, but it's not. The Westgate car park has a height restriction of 2 metres. The standard height of a large wheelchair accessible vehicle is 2.4 metres. There's therefore no way that a large wheelchair accessible vehicle can get into the new Westgate car park. Once inside, the Westgate is potentially an empowering space for disabled people, including those in larger electric wheelchairs, allowing them to enjoy a great new civic space along with everyone else. So, it's all the more frustrating that for those arriving at the new Westgate in large wheelchair accessible vehicles, that the complex is, in reality, an impregnable fortress, a situation I believe is at odds with the Council's stated mission of building a world-class city for everyone. Large wheelchair accessible vehicles are high for a reason. Sufficient headroom allows single users to load and unload safely using a built-in ramp system. Sufficient headroom allows carers for more seriously disabled people to move round the patient and wheelchair easily, ensuring safe care during transit and reducing chances of further head injuries while the vehicle is on the move. For these reasons, 2.4 metres is a standard height for large wheelchair accessible vehicles, although some can be even higher, as can passenger cars with hoists on the roof. For these reasons, BS 8300, that's the code of practice for design of buildings and their approaches to meet the needs of disabled people, BS 8300 stipulates headroom clearance of 2.6 metres as a minimum for car parks built within the last 2 years. Passengers using large wheelchair accessible vehicles include those with multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's disease, motor neurone disease, as well as paraplegic and tetraplegic drivers. Charities, care homes for elderly adults and specialist children's homes, as well as individuals, are all users of large wheelchair accessible vehicles. I understand that the new generation of school buses are also being designed as wheelchair accessible vehicles and will thus come into this category too. But in the case of the Westgate, I believe the current provision for large wheelchair accessible vehicles is not only non-existent, but actually unsafe. There are no signs warning of height restrictions until the driver is already committed to going down the ramp into the car park. Indeed, signs to the excellent shop mobility scheme ironically lead you to believe that all disabled vehicles are welcome. It is only once you're on the ramp that a dangerous situation becomes apparent. At that point, a sign orders you to do a U-turn on the ramp, with exiting cars accelerating round the corner up the ramp, having passed through the ticket barriers. This design flaw needs urgent attention before an already vulnerable person in the back of a large wheelchair accessible vehicle is seriously injured. All new car parks like that at the Westgate should be consistent with British Standard 8300, with reasonable adjustments for disabled people as laid out in the 2010 Equalities Act. I've made a short film illustrating from a personal point of view the problems faced by users of these vehicles, which I hope some council members may have had a chance to view before this meeting. Finally, I would also like the council to consider the implications for users of large wheelchair accessible vehicles for the headroom barriers currently going up in car parks all over Oxford. Whatever the reasons for this, I would ask councillors to bear in mind that these headroom barriers have the potential to exclude disabled people and groups in large wheelchair accessible vehicles from every space where such barriers exist. This, I'm sure, is an unintended consequence of some other decision, but it's one with consequences for disabled people nonetheless. Thank you.
Councillor Tidball would like to answer.
So thank you very much indeed, Amanda, for raising this really important issue. On the points relating to the Westgate, the very important points, we have a motion coming up later in the agenda, and I will be supporting that motion, and we'll make a full speech outlining the points of support there, if that's okay, so that we save the material being repeated again. On your points around the need to consider what's happening on new car parks that are going up across the city, I'll make sure our planning team have that message conveyed to them, and indeed Councillor Alex Hollingsworth, who is the board member with this in his portfolio and can't be here this evening, that he has also encouraged and made sure that he keeps a very close eye on those developments and perhaps review situations where that has happened. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you again for coming. Nigel Gibson is not here?
He's filming.
Right.
I'm
So
not
you're
on
not
to the
speaking?
question. I'm asking a question.
Well, you're down here.
I'll come down if you like, I'll answer it from here.
You're not doing that. So, Judith on Windows there.
Thank you. Lord Mayor, councillors, my last address to full council at the end of January referred to January's Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day and to the fact that this April commemorated the 50th anniversary of Dr. King's assassination. I also mentioned that Oxford City Council observes a range of days celebrating various communities within the city, but has no special day of significance to those of African heritage. I believe the city's African heritage community are severely underrepresented, ill-considered, poorly served and generally neglected. Those of African heritage tell me that they feel they're being ignored, stigmatised and met with racism and disparity. Another significant anniversary for the African heritage community is fast approaching, Windrush Day on the 22nd of June. After World War II, Britain's post-war national rebuilding programme prompted invitations to Commonwealth citizens to come to the mother country's aid. On the 22nd of June, 1948, the MV Empire Windrush landed at Tilbury Docks, carrying 492 Jamaican passengers who were termed the Windrush Generation. This was the first of many arrivals of Commonwealth citizens willing to help rebuild a broken Britain after the war. This year, Friday the 22nd of June, marks the 70th anniversary of this Windrush landing. Many of these invited Commonwealth workers, British citizens, were treated incredibly badly after their arrival. But, despite experiencing years of extreme racial discrimination, they contributed widely to the UK economy and culture. Shockingly, their children, who arrived in Britain between 1948 and 1971, are now in the news for receiving further discrimination and injustice. After years of working, paying tax and participating in community life, they have been incorrectly identified as undocumented or illegal migrants because, having arrived as children, they are now unable to provide formal paperwork proving their lifetime association with the UK. Some of these are Oxford residents. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." this year would be a good year for you, the City Council, to address the injustices to and to understanding the particular challenges facing Oxford's African heritage community and make Oxford more welcoming to this group. One small step would be to help to celebrate Windrush Day, to remind us how much the African heritage community is a crucial part of British culture and that racism and intolerance are completely unacceptable. This year, Windrush Day is in Refugee Week, 18th to the 24th of June. There are two further pertinent commemorative days recognised internationally by the United Nations. These are August the 23rd, Remembrance of the Slave Trade and its Abolition, observed annually to remind people of the tragedy of the transatlantic slave trade, and December the 2nd, Abolition of Slavery Day. This is held to raise awareness of the atrocities of modern slavery. I wish to invite the City Council to work with an organisation with which I am associated, the Oxford African History Celebration, OAHC, to commemorate these days. We would welcome your help in providing premises, funding and other support to promote events commemorating these days. I look forward to hearing how the City Council will assist OAHC with these commemorations. Thank you.
Councillor Brown?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to thank Judith for raising this important issue. I said earlier that I would be giving a statement to Council on this issue in any event, but I deliberately waited until this point because it seemed sensible to raise it at the same time as we were responding to your statement, as you have raised the issue of this injustice. This whole affair is a shameful episode for which the Prime Minister personally needs to accept responsibility, along with her Conservative and Lib Dem coalition colleagues, who supported a change in the law in 2014 which has directly led to this situation. The nature of this mean-spirited and discriminatory policy is that people are not necessarily aware of the problems that they face until they're asked for proof of identity when applying for work, benefits, new access to healthcare or a pension. I would like to reassure councillors and the public that in Oxford, City Council staff working in our customer services teams have been briefed to do all they can to help people who find themselves in this situation, and more information will be put out in our next tenants newsletter. We're aware that people are only just beginning to realise their situation. So far, we have had a small number of inquiries, but we expect this to grow in light of recent publicity. We're fortunate in Oxford to have a number of excellent organisations such as Asylum Welcome and Open Door Oxford and the advice agencies that the City Council supports with funding, who are well placed to give helpful advice and support. I would urge anyone who finds themselves in this situation to contact an advice agency, the City Council or their MP, depending on their circumstances. And I would remind councillors of the advice note that was circulated earlier today. The way the government has used its immigration laws to discriminate against the Windrush generation is utterly unacceptable and mean-spirited. In Oxford, we are proud of the huge contribution that they and other Commonwealth citizens have made to our city. The City Council was proud to support the combined celebrations of Commonwealth Day and the single act of remembrance in March, recognising the role that Commonwealth citizens play in supporting our country in its hour of greatest need, as well as the massive contribution made every single day in the NHS, in social care and education, and building up our vibrant local economy. Given all that these citizens have done since the Empire Windrush arrived in England 70 years ago to come to our support after the Second World War, you would have thought this government would want to recognise this and celebrate it in this anniversary year. Instead, they have denied hard-working members of the African Caribbean community their rightful access to health services, benefits and housing, and refused them re-entry to the UK after they visit their relatives in the Caribbean. By creating a hostile environment for immigrants and treating the Windrush generation so badly, they have again revealed their true colours. They remain the nasty party, as the current Prime Minister and architect of the immigration laws, Theresa May, memorably described them. We will also want to see Oxford City Council support celebrations of the Windrush anniversary in June. We will work with local community groups to see how we can support their celebrations and recognise the contribution to our city. On behalf of the City of Oxford, I know that colleagues across the Council will want to say thank you to the African Caribbean community, as we do to all the different communities who contribute to the rich diversity of Oxford life.
Judith, you have another address for
I
us?
do. Lord Mayor, Councillors, in December 2014, despite many objections, the City Council decided to sell the former Temple Cowley Pools, TCP, site to Housing Association Catalyst. Included in this sale was the land which had been used for many years as a car park by the Temple Cowley Library. This car park had space for around 10 vehicles and was an essential component of the library, especially for its elderly and disabled users. Planning permission for developing the TCP site was formally granted in February 2018, and part of the sale and grant of planning permission conditions included a legal obligation on Catalyst to provide a minimum of 3 parking spaces for Temple Cowley Library staff and users somewhere on the TCP site. Since planning permission was granted, contractors for Catalyst have boarded up the entire library car park without providing any alternative parking spaces on the site. I have notified the County Council of this, and Catalyst have acknowledged their obligation, but have still done nothing to provide any parking spaces for the library. This is most unacceptable, as visitors requiring parking have to park either on the narrow library slip road, into which Catalyst have trespassed with their hoarding, or in the very limited parking spaces in the area, if they can find one. The hoarding around the car park has also severely restricted access to, and vision of, the library cycle racks. I am sure that this lack of visibility contributed to the theft, only last week, of 2 cycles locked to the racks. I am asking the City Council, as vendors of the TCP site, before proceeding with final completion of the sale, to immediately enforce the obligation on Catalyst to provide a minimum of 3 parking spaces for Temple Cowley Library. I believe that Catalyst are flouting their legal obligation to the detriment of library staff and users. I would also ask the City Council to encourage Catalyst to improve the accessibility and visibility of the library cycle racks. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you for raising those issues. We will look into them and we will give you a written response.
Thank you very much. Right. Then, I think I'll next. Hello, Michael. Welcome.
I would like to invite the Labour-controlled Oxford City Council to apologise to those in need of affordable accommodation, key workers, and for those for whom 2/3 of their income is spent on rental property in Oxford. As this awful situation is for many people in Oxford, the contract with Grosvenors to construct 800 homes on Barton Park has actually added to Oxford's housing crisis. A seller on Sandhills Estate, who has a 3-bedroom home, has added £130,000 to her asking price, simply to keep in line with the extortionate prices of £600,000 which Grosvenors has set for a 3-bedroom home on the Barton Park estate. Oxford's estate agents warn that the inflated prices being asked at Barton Park would have the effect of raising the average price of an Oxford home from £400,000 to nearer the Barton Park's price of £600,000 for a family home. The Oxford Mail front page on Monday the 16th of April carried the headline, "Need a home? Go to Walsall." The high rents are forcing the council to move people 100 miles away from this city. I regard the £600,000 for a Barton Park home as completely corporate greed. How does aiding what I believe to be Grosvenor's corporate greed tally with the mission of the highly paid city executive officers to promote sustainable communities and community development and social integration. I believe that Oxford Labour-led City Council is directly responsible for the inflated Oxford house prices, into which has been aggravated by prices in Barton Park development. I invite Oxford City Councillors to apologise for what I consider to be their financial incompetence, which will only add to the misery for thousands of Oxford home seekers. Thank you.
Thank you, You'll have a written response from Councillor Rowley, and I think that is what you can have. Thank you very much for coming. So I've got things slightly out of order. So, thank you.
I'm used to that, thank you. First, I'd like to thank Council for the answer to my question. However, it doesn't address the point I was making, which was since the start of April, the prices at ferry for concessions went up from £1.30 to £2, irrespective of what time of day it was. This is absolutely outrageous. A 53% increase on the disabled is just not fair. I don't understand how it was allowed to get through, other than, of course, the increase was buried in the budget in Appendix 7, right in the middle, where no one's going to notice it. So, what I'd like to know, really, as much as anything, well, there's an update for you. Miraculously, after I put the question in, the prices in ferry have now come down from £2 to £1.50. So thank you whoever sorted that out, but you make no reference to it in the answer. I would like to know why there is this discrimination as well on certain peak times, why the disabled shouldn't be discouraged from going at those times as opposed to any other as well. And of course, are the people who paid £2 each time they've been to ferries during April, are they going to get their 50p back for every visit they've had? Thank you.
Do we have an answer?
Yeah, so there's a written response. I'm not going to add a great deal more to that, other than the prices were consulted on, fees and charges, which are the maximum fees and charges which can be charged in our leisure centre, were consulted upon and went through all the appropriate channels of the council before they were agreed. What I would say is that having looked back at the consultation document and the questions that were asked online as part of the budget consultation, I don't think that was as clear as it could have been in terms of highlighting the change that was in there. And that is something I've discussed with officers, and I hope lessons will be learned for future years.
Okay, and are people going to get their money back?
If people have been overcharged for access to our leisure centres, then they should get in contact with the leisure centre in the first instance, or if they don't receive satisfaction there, with the City Council, and we will look into that on a case-by-case basis.
A case-by-case basis, thank you.
Thank you, Nigel. Judith. Question was.
Lord Mayor, Councillors, me again. On April the 1st, Oxford Direct Services, ODS, became a limited company. As they are occupying City Council premises at the Marsh Road Depot in Cowley, I wish to know the following. 1. How much rent is ODS paying the City Council? 2. How much are ODS paying in business rates? 3. As ODS have publicly stated their expansion plans, what measures are they taking to relocate away from their Marsh Road site? For example, at present their services include working on a wide range of vehicles, from taxis to buses to private cars. Their current site, in a residential location and next to leisure facilities, is totally unsuitable for this operation and totally unsuitable for any subsequent expansion. Local residents are convinced that the expansion of ODS is what necessitated their theft of part of Cowley Marsh Park. And I might add that residents are very concerned that the building work going on looks very permanent, not temporary. My fourth question is, as planning permission for expansion into the Cowley Marsh Park wildflower meadow was granted for 5 years, and some 6 months of this have passed already, how will the City Council reassure residents that it will ensure that ODS relocates within the next 4.5 years and restores the wildflower meadow to its previous state? Thank you.
Thank you. There is a written up response here from Councillor Turner, who doesn't appear to be with us.
I'm thinking it might be helpful for me to read it because it won't have been circulated.
Yeah.
So, on behalf of Councillor Turner, in answer to question 1, how much rent is ODS paying the City Council, the answer is a total of £520,000 per annum, which is at market rent rates for the premises around the city. In answer to question 2, in terms of business rates, 223k per annum. And in response to questions 3 and 4, part of the ODS plan is to consider its corporate property portfolio to review whether it's fit for purpose to support the business expansion plans. And this will be looked at over the next couple of years. The Council is mindful of the 5-year planning permission granted at the Cowley Marsh Park site.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Now we get on.